Masseuses, what was the wildest thing to happen during a massage session? Before we start, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Story 1. So there was this guy getting a massage lying face down, and every time the therapist began, he would loudly moan in a really unprofessional way. Feeling uncomfortable, she stepped out to ask her boss for advice. Just to clarify, this is a high-end salon where customers typically spend around $100 for a service, and those who opt for the full spa experience can shell out $400 to $500. The boss instructed her to go back in and let him know that she couldn't continue the service if he kept behaving that way. When she resumed, he immediately started moaning and trembling again. She then informed him that she couldn't finish the massage and that he was welcome to get a full refund at the front desk. She left the room to allow him to dress and exit the salon. When the therapist passes the guy who just left, he had the biggest grin on his face of all time. She couldn't quite put two and two together at this point. The next guest wasn't until much later, so about an hour later, she goes in to clean the room and get ready for the next guest. This frigging pervert had rubbed one out and put his mayonnaise all over the massage table. Safe to say his name is still banned from any further services to this day. That is absolutely disgusting. It's unbelievable how some people can be so disrespectful in a professional setting. Story 2. I used to be a licensed massage therapist, but a few incidents led me to quit the profession because it wasn't profitable, and I often encountered creepy older guys trying to push boundaries. Just to clarify, I'm a male. I specialized in sports massage, and one day an old tennis coach from a prestigious private school came in needing a full-body deep tissue session. I thought this could lead to opportunities for working with the school during their pre- and post-tennis sessions. Halfway through, he asked if I could focus more on his glutes, which I figured was reasonable given the demands of the sport. But then he asked if I could go deeper and actually said, "Could you massage my prostate?" Record scratch. No way. I told him that his urologist could handle that. As I worked on his shoulders, his hand started creeping up my leg, so I brushed it off. Things took a turn, and I realized it was time to set some firm boundaries. I couldn't let this go any further, so I made it clear that his behavior was not acceptable. Next thing I knew, he was grabbing my thighs hard, so I responded by grabbing his clavicle firmly and told him that if he didn't let go, he wouldn't be teaching tennis anymore. I insisted he needed to get the F out. Surprisingly, he still paid me and said he was going to come back because he liked a fighter. I did a search on him later and saw he's still teaching at that school. I can't shake the feeling that there might be some news buzz surrounding him one day, especially considering his behavior. It's unsettling to think about what could happen. Sounds like an absolute creep. I hope the writer reported him. He wouldn't be allowed near his students if his information gets leaked. Story 3. One night, I received a call from my friend saying her boss wanted a massage and recommended me. Feeling comfortable since he was her boss, I headed to his place with my gear. After setting up, he offered me a Vegas bomb, which I declined, and the massage began normally. He was an Indian guy, chatting about how great the experience was and saying he'd recommend me to his friends. However, about halfway through, he suddenly asked, "Do you do happy endings?" My hands froze. I'd never been asked that directly before. When I replied no, he pressed, "Why not?" I responded, "Because that's unprofessional," to which he countered, "I pay extra." I quickly ended the session, packed up my gear, told him to pay the full price, and left. Once I got home, I called my friend to share my experience. To my surprise, she laughed, revealing that he had asked her the same question, and thinking he was joking, she had playfully replied, "Yes." What the heck? That friend doesn't sound like much of a friend, or thoroughly lacks perception, 'cause who the F does that? Also, you've got to be a high level of weirdo if you think to yourself, "I'm quite horny. Oh, I know, I'll ask a woman who works for me, if they know anyone that will take care of my D." Story 4. I'm a male massage therapist, and on this particular day I had a male client, which is quite common. As usual, clients undress to their inners and lie face down under a towel. I began the massage, focusing on his lower back and using a rocking motion to stretch him out. His breathing noticeably increased, but I didn't think much of it, just part of the routine. However, just as I was about to ask him to roll over, he suddenly grunted and moaned. Concerned I might have hurt him, I paused, but then he jumped up in a panic, throwing off the towel to reveal a large wet patch in his inners. He apologized profusely, explaining he tried to control it but couldn't help himself. Before I could reassure him that it was natural, he hurriedly grabbed his clothes and dashed out. Thankfully, it was a quiet day, so there were no other clients around to witness the scene. Story 5. I was massaging a client who had a large raised mole on her back. During that session, it looked particularly inflamed, so I mentioned afterward that she should get it checked out. She brushed it off, saying, "Oh, I have that mole checked regularly, it's fine." The next week, she returned, and the mole looked even worse, now about the size of a penny. I insisted she speak with her doctor, but she still didn't seem concerned. By the following week, after 3 weeks had passed, she walked in with a bemused look on her face. "You know that mole you told me to check?" she said. "Well, I had my husband take a look at it because I noticed it was itching. Turns out it wasn't a mole at all. It was a tick," she added, explaining it had been feeding on her for 3 weeks. Story 6. Not a massage therapist, but my dad is. And this is one of his favorite stories. When his clients come in, he gives them a list of Pandora stations to choose from for the session. One day, a client picks 50s jazz, like Ella Fitzgerald and such. The thing about some of these songs from the 50s is that they can be quite intimate. One song comes on featuring a woman asking her lover when he's coming home, with lines like, "When are you going to come? Oh, I can't wait for you to be here. I love it when you come for me." He's in the middle of working on this woman's glutes when the song plays, and he pauses to see if she's awake. She hasn't said anything for a while, so he figures she's just fallen asleep. It's a hassle to stop what he's doing, walk over to the phone, and wipe all the massage oil off his fingers just to skip the song. So he makes a mental note to remove it from the playlist and continues working. A few minutes later, as the song reaches its peak with the woman pleading for her lover to arrive, his massage bottle runs out of oil. Not a problem. He always keeps a spare on his hip for situations like this. However, sometimes when a bottle is being filled, a bubble of air gets caught in the tube and comes out with the first pump. He goes to pump the oil into his hand, and a mix of oil and air comes out with a loud spludge sound, like a cartoonish noise. He freezes, one hand on the pump and the other on this woman's glute. She doesn't react, so he thinks she's still asleep. Then suddenly her whole body starts shaking with laughter. They both laugh so hard that they need to take a break from the massage to compose themselves. Thank goodness she was chill and found it just as funny as he did. That was hilarious. It's nice to see that both of them could laugh about it together. Sounds like a How I Met Your Mother kind of story. Story 7. I had a very eccentric, unusual client who came into our clinic one day wanting a tui na massage, which is a type of Chinese massage. We usually leave the room to let clients undress to their inners before we start. But with this guy, I had no chance to get away. Before I could hand him a towel, he dropped his pants to reveal a sparkling blue string inner that barely kept everything in place. He was about 5'8", had a large beer belly, gray hair, a gold earring, and was quite hairy, reminiscent of Robin Williams. As I started the massage, the guy began telling me that he worked as an unconventional masseuse, specializing in body slide massage. This involves the masseuse getting oiled up and gliding their body over the client before finishing the session in a particular way. The whole time I was massaging him, he kept saying that I was really good with my hands. He also repeatedly mentioned how skilled he was at his job, subtly promoting his business with a hinting tone. It made for a very awkward session. Story 8. From ages 19 to 21, I worked as a receptionist at a massage place. People would often come in just to ask about the prices, and that was usually the extent of our conversations. One day, a guy walked in, asked how much the massages were, and then, in an overly friendly voice, asked if I did the massages. Naively, I started to explain, "No, not me. They're done by..." Just as my boss walked out of the consultation room with a client and said, "I do the massages. Can I help you?" The guy looked instantly sheepish and hurried out the door. My boss mentioned he'd overheard the guy's question and sensed something was off. He advised me that if it ever happened again, I should just say I would get the masseur for him and walk away. Story 9. My parents own a spa where I used to work, and I have a ton of stories, but here's a good one. At one point, we had 2 male massage therapists. I worked in the call center, and before booking a massage, we always clarified if the client was comfortable seeing a male therapist since we had a majority female clientele. One day, a male client booked a massage for himself with our male therapist, Ed. He was a new client and specifically requested a male therapist, which was a bit unusual for us. The guy went in for his appointment, and the first half went normally. He was lying bare on the massage table, with a blanket covering his lower half. After the first half of the massage, Ed told him to flip over to his back to continue. When he flipped over, he handed Ed a wad of cash from who knows where and said, "That's for you," then started to play with his dong. Ed promptly replied, "All right, your appointment is done. They'll take care of you at the front desk," and quickly left the room. The guy paid and left without any issues. Here's the kicker. Ed never told my parents or the manager. None of us found out until work gossip spread. Because we didn't know about this creep, the guy ended up calling and scheduling another appointment with Ed. Once we caught wind of what happened, the guy was asked not to come back shortly after booking. It was a wild situation. The spa is a pretty upscale place, with prices in the triple digits. So I'm not sure if the guy thought we were just an expensive spa with a side hustle or if he mistook it for a really cheap brothel. It's puzzling how some people can misinterpret the environment. Story 10. I was a new therapist working with a recent mom. As I started on her glutes, I noticed the sheets felt a little damp. I turned off the table warmer and continued. When I moved to the other side of the glute, the sheet was nearly soaked and transparent. Naively, I thought, "Wow, she's really sweaty." After the massage, she hurried out, red-faced and smiling. Looking back, it must have been one of the best massages I'd ever given, though I didn't realize why at the time. Story 11. I have a friend who is a licensed massage therapist and has been studying medicine, spending a lot of time around doctors. During one session with a regular female client, while she was face down and he was working on her back from the front, she unexpectedly reached up and grabbed his A. It definitely caught him off guard. He asked what she was doing, and she said, "Sorry, I don't know, I couldn't help myself." He told her not to do that again, and the rest of the session continued as normal. At the end of the session, he got her a glass of water, and as he turned around to leave, she grabbed him again. She apologized and seemed genuinely upset and embarrassed, insisting that she just couldn't help herself. It was an awkward situation, but he handled it professionally. My friend paused for a moment and did a quick check of her peripheral vision, noticing it was significantly below normal. He called her husband and suggested they see a doctor, as there might be issues with her impulse control and vision, hinting at a possible frontal lobe problem. Sure enough, a few days later, she had an MRI, and it turned out there was a tumor developing in her frontal lobe. I think it was glioblastoma, but I can't recall the exact medical terminology he used. Fortunately, it was removed, and she is doing well now. Story 12. Believe it or not, I had a massage with a new therapist once at a popular massage place. Before I flipped over from my stomach, she whispered, "Anything else I can do or focus on before you turn over?" Given the reputation of the place, I assumed she meant it non-sexually, so I said no. After I turned over, she massaged my legs without any issue. But when she got to my arms, she rested my hands on her chest slightly, and I had to think about my grandma just to keep my composure. We finished the massage and I left. A few weeks later, I rescheduled and got her again. This time, she had changed her technique and rested my arm on her rolling chair instead. So, someone must have mentioned something to her? Story 13. My wife is a registered massage therapist, and a lot of tradespeople go out west for work, often returning to visit family or permanently. One day, she had a client who had just come back from the oil rigs. He assured her that if she did a real good job, he'd tip her well, in more than one way. She replied that she'd make sure to do a good job and that she could apply deep pressure if that's what he wanted. However, he kept pushing the idea of a real good job and lots of money, making the session feel uncomfortable. She's not a prude and doesn't take any nonsense from anyone, but she wasn't sure if his dong was moving involuntarily or if he was actually wagging it at her. I chimed in to let her know that he was definitely wagging it, hoping she'd notice. Of course, she didn't react and ended up getting a mediocre tip. She saw the guy maybe once or twice afterward, and their interactions remained similarly awkward, if not more subdued. That's probably the worst thing to happen to her, but it's worth noting that a male colleague of hers was charged with boundary violation and causing physical harm to a couple of clients. It's a reminder that things like this do happen more often than one might think. It's concerning and highlights the need for awareness and safety in the profession. Story 14. I used to do body wraps for detox and inch loss, and one of my regular clients came in for a half-body wrap before her cruise. I knew her well and was aware that she preferred to do the wraps completely nude, and she was always very nice. Later that evening, her husband called me and said that her lips down there were no longer symmetrical and that I needed to redo the wrap to make them match. I had zero control over how the body would react to the wrap, but since she was a good client, I was more than happy to try. I thought wrapping that area a little tighter might help, so I did just that. After the wrap, her husband came into the room and asked me to stay in case I needed to assist. He then got down on his knees and started inspecting her. It was definitely an unexpected and awkward moment. I stayed a few minutes, not wanting to leave since he had asked me to stay. But when the inspection turned into something more, it was clear they just wanted an audience. I knew I had to get out of there. He mentioned I would have gotten a fat tip if I stayed, and I replied, "Yeah, I bet it would have been more than just a tip." I told them never to return. People really do be wilding. The story was horrifying, but it's a relief that it didn't escalate any further. Also, I love how the writer mentioned inch loss because they know it's total BS. Story 15. My mom is a massage therapist and has worked at several chiropractic offices. If you're good and trustworthy enough, the chiropractors will often give you the keys so you can see clients on weekends. It's a great way to build up a client base and earn some extra income while helping people. I once had to take an Uber to my mom's workplace when she was scheduled to massage a new client. He was married and new to the US, and while he had been sending her messages, she initially thought his intent might just be lost in translation due to his limited English. Then I got a call from her asking me to get there as soon as possible. Apparently, he had sent a message with a code phrase that in the massage world typically indicates things might turn into something more. It definitely raised some red flags. So, I arrived first, and when my mom got there, she tried to downplay the situation to reassure herself. She kept saying things like, maybe he just didn't know what that meant. I could be jumping to conclusions. He has a wife, after all. It was her way of trying to make sense of it, but I could tell she was still on edge about the whole thing. When the man arrived, he came in with candy and flowers, and he saw me sitting in the chair looking really confused. He handed them to my mom, who proceeded to massage him as usual. After the session, he paid her, gave me a sideways glance, and then left. It felt like a really strange moment, especially with all the tension leading up to it. Story 16. I've been a registered massage therapist for just over 5 years, and while I often receive comments, I find that setting firm boundaries usually helps people understand my limits. However, there was one client I'd been seeing for nearly a year who started getting overly friendly towards the end of our sessions. One evening, when it was just me and the receptionist, he asked if I could focus solely on his quads for the entire hour and use very light pressure, a rather unusual request. I refused and encouraged him to include more areas, which he reluctantly agreed to. About 10 minutes into the appointment, he suggested that I get on the table instead so he could massage me. I declined, explaining that it wasn't appropriate. He then asked if I had a massage table at home, to which I said no. He followed up with, "That's fine. We can just do it in my bed instead," and I firmly said no again, emphasizing that it was not appropriate at all. Looking back, I realized I should have ended the session right then. He then mentioned that once I get married and have kids, I could say goodbye to having a sexual life. Then asked me, "Do you like doing it? Do you like D in your mouth, kitty or A?" I damn nearly crawled out of my skin. I felt completely uneasy, shaking with fear. This man was easily twice my size, and I was alone in the room with him. I ended the treatment 20 minutes early, and he didn't seem to mind. I quickly informed the receptionist to ban him from the clinic. I spotted him at the mall later with his family, and I suddenly felt an anxiety attack coming on, which is unusual for me. Just a reminder to all my fellow therapists, stay safe out there. Story 17. So, I used to work at a massage place in Florida. It wasn't anything fancy, but it got the job done. We had a few regulars who would come in weekly. One day, a regular who always requested me came in, and we started our usual small talk while I prepped my things. He mentioned he had just gotten out of a really bad marriage. Now, this guy wasn't bad looking, maybe a 7 out of 10, with a good job and a nice car. Plus, he always tipped well. Towards the end of the massage, he asked if he could get something extra. I was a bit confused at first and suggested he could always get a shampoo or try the massage chair for an extra charge. But then he clarified, "No, I mean something else." At that point, I understood what he meant and couldn't help but smirk. As he flipped over to lay on his back and face me, I leaned in and whispered, "Epstein didn't kill himself." Story 18. I'm a male masseuse who does home visits, and I had a particular client 3 times. Typically, I ask clients to undress to their inners, and during the second session, he got completely nude. I didn't think much of it as he seemed comfortable. However, at the end of the third session, while I was massaging his neck and he was lying on his back, he suddenly started his solo session. It caught me off guard. I was kind of shocked in the moment and didn't know how to react. He reached for my hand as if to encourage me to continue, and at that point, I stood up and said I had to go. It was pretty awkward waiting for him to get dressed so I could pack up my table and collect my payment before leaving. I've had a couple of incidents in my 5 years, and I know female therapists often face much worse situations. It's frustrating that massage is sometimes associated with the sensual or sexual aspect because I genuinely enjoy helping people with aches and mobility issues. It makes it challenging to advertise without attracting calls from guys looking for something inappropriate. I wish I had the confidence to even think about going to a massage therapist, let alone thinking I could pleasure myself while someone is massaging me. Where do people get this confidence in themselves? It's unfortunate that so many people miss out on the benefits of massage due to feelings of self-consciousness or societal pressures. A good massage can really help with tension and back pain, and it's a shame that those who could benefit the most might hold back because of those concerns. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.